All right, I'm gonna keep moving down on the screen, and I'm not gonna spend much time on this part because we're about to literally do a bunch of problems like this. So these were the only two other problems we did. How do I get rid of them? Am I? Hope that this is on YouTube now. Hope he's gone. This is tell what type of sequence we have, give the explicit formula. I crossed out give the recursive formula. We're going to be dealing with recursive today, but I'm not going to ever make you write it because I think it's kind of silly. And then I said find the eighth term. So what we did is we were able to plug in some pieces, solve and find the next term. So again, I'm going to move on from this, but if you want to take a picture because you missed this in your notes, do that right now. And then we're going to do problems just like this. So you'll be kind of caught up in a second. And then there is like a short video on this if you need to like actually hear me explain it, but I'm gonna do a lot of problems like this in a second. So I don't think you're gonna be too behind if you haven't seen this. Okay. So that being said, I'm gonna keep it moving. We're actually gonna do a couple of these like recursive functions where I'm kind of plugging pieces in, and then we're gonna come back to these sequence forms, okay? So I want you to jump all the way down to number 2. These say find the first 3 terms and then the 50th term. Remember that a sub n means the nth term, and then n is like what number term we want. So when I am plugging things in, if I want the second term, then I'm going to plug a 2 in for n. If I want the 100th term, I'm going to plug a 100 in for n, okay? So these say find the first 3 terms and then find the 50th term. So to find the first term in this sequence, I'm going to say a sub 1 because I want the first term. And that's going to be equal to, every time I see an n, I'm going to plug in a 1. 1 plus 1 over 1. 1 plus 1 over 1 is 2 over 1. So my first term is just 2. Right, that's not too crazy, is it? Same idea, let's do a sub 2. Every time you see an n, plug in a 2. So we're going to do 2 plus 1 over 2, which is 3 halves. We can't simplify that anymore, so my second term is 3 halves. And then we've got a sub 3, so we're going to do 3 plus 1 over 3, which is 4/3. And again, we can't simplify that, so the third term is 4/3. I like to often write these as a list. It's 2, 3 over 2, 4 over 3. That's like what the list of numbers would be. Now it asks us to find the 50th term. So I'm going to do a dot, 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 which means that this pattern continues and continues. And then I'm going to write the 50th term. And we're going to do that by just plugging in like we were doing. Instead of plugging in 1, 2, or 3, this time we're going to plug in a sub 50. So 50 plus 1 over 50. 51 over 50. Right, that's all that wants from us. Not too bad, is it? Can we go do the next one? Same idea? You think you can start it without me? Okay, try it without me. On the next one, same idea. Do 1, 2, and 3, and then do 50. All right, I've got my first, second, and third terms already. And now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to do a sub 50. actually simplify down. Give me 1/13. One over 13. All right, questions on this so far? No, doing okay? This isn't too bad. Let's keep moving. We're gonna skip number 3 for right now, and we're gonna jump to number 4. Now, this is what we call the recursive function, recursive formula. I'm not gonna ask you to write it in recursive because I just don't think that's a super helpful scale. I think the normal formula is better, but this is recursive. Basically, recursive formulas use like the term right before it. So I say, okay, take the term right before it and like add 3 to it. Or take the term right before it and multiply by 2 and then add 7. So we're gonna take the term right in front of it and use that to help us find our next term, okay? It's written a little bit funny. This one says a sub n plus 1 equals 2 times a sub n minus 5. That means if I want to find the second term, I have to think of that as a sub 1 plus 1. I'm going to take n is going to be 1 because I can do 2 of a sub 1 and minus 5. That's going to give me a sub 2. It's going to give me my second term. And we know that a sub 1 is 3. So I'm just going to take 3 and sub it into this equation. And that's going to give me my second term. 2 times 3 minus 5 is going to be 6 minus 5. So a sub 2, my second term, is going to be 1. To find my third term, I'm going to take the number I just found and plug that into my equation. So basically now we're thinking of this in terms of n is 2. So n of 2 plus 1 is equal to 2 times a sub 2 minus 5. Which gives me the third term, 2 times 1 minus 5. Now, the more we do, you probably won't write these first steps, but if you are kind of confused on how we get to the next piece, this is what I want you to think about it as. I'm plugging in that a sub 2, which is 1. So 2 times 1 is going to be 2. 2 minus 5 is going to be negative 3. So my third term is negative 3. Now we're going to do a sub 3 plus 1 to find the fourth term. So that's 2 times my a sub 3 term. What is my a sub 3 term? What did I just find that to be?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. So I got negative 6 minus 5, which is going to be a sub 4 equals negative 11. And then do it one more time to get the fifth term. Come back. Okay. So again, just like I said on the last one, I like to write this out like a series of numbers. It's 3, 1, negative 3, negative 11, negative 27. So that would be like my list of numbers. That would be my sequence of numbers if that's what I'd started with. Okay, does anybody have questions on that? I know it's a little funky. Let's do another one like that, and then I want you to try one on your own. Okay. So this one says a sub n plus 2 equals n plus 1 times a sub n. Okay, I want our first thing to be n is 1. So n is 1 in this case, which means that a sub 1 plus 2 means that I'm going to get the third term, right? And that means that I'm going to use my a sub 1 plus 1 times my a sub 1 term. Well, we know of 1 plus 1 is 2. So that means to get my third term, I'm going to do my second term times my first term. Okay, do I have my second term? What is it? 4, good, and do I have my first term? 3, so 4 times 3 is gonna give me my third term, and my third term is 12. All right, same idea for the next one. Now I'm gonna use the next 2 terms to help me get my fourth term. That means I'm gonna have to use the second term and the third term to help me get term number 4. In that case, if we're still kind of plugging in, that's like n is 2, so I'm gonna do my a sub 2 plus 2, which will be 4. And my first term is n plus 1, which is gonna be 3, times a sub n, which is a sub 2. What was my third term? What did we just find that to be? 12, good. And what's my second term? 4, very good. So 12 times 4, my fourth term is gonna be 48. All right, we just have to do it one more time to get my fifth term. So that would be that I'm gonna plug 3 in for n. So a sub 3 plus 2 is gonna be 5. 3 plus 1 is 4, so I'm gonna do my fourth term times n, which is 3, my third term. What was my fourth term? 48. What's my third term? 12. 48 times 12, that's gonna be kind of a big number, isn't it? 576. So my terms here go 3, 4, 12, 48, 5, 76. That's my sequence here. Again, I know that one was kind of weird. Are we okay with what happened? Okay. I think you can try letter C on your own. It's a lot like letter A. Go and try letter C on your own. I'll join you in 1 second. Okay. But how many do I have? Okay. Okay, so how many other does we have? Okay. Okay. We did this in class, like, we made, okay. Okay, so. Different suits are there, figure it out.
I use a Russian please.
All right, I've got my next set of numbers up as well. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see my work too. I don't need this first step necessarily, but if you are not getting the right answer without that first step, you're gonna need to show me that. Okay, I do expect a little bit of work so I can see what you're plugging in. Because if you just come up with a list of numbers and it's wrong, then I have no points to find for you because I don't know what you didn't understand.
So in the original formula, it's simply 3a minus 1. Where is the minus 1?
The -1 deals with what number is here. So the -1 is not like the term. So I'm treating this as, on some of the other ones we started with n equals 1. I'm starting with n equals 2 so that I can use the 2 minus 1, which is the first term. Same thing for number 3. The -1 comes into the fact that I'm using the second term to help me find the third term. Okay. All right, doing okay? All right. When you're done with that, flip your paper over. Let's start some of number 5. All right, number 5 says, consider the sequence, find the common difference ratio of the 8th term and the explicit rule. This is basically like number 2 that we skipped earlier, or like number 1, A and B, that like I showed you at the beginning and said we're gonna do more like it. Now is when we're gonna do more like it. What I am gonna do is write the little formulas at the top so I can remember them. So I'm gonna do my arithmetic sequence. A sub 1 or A sub n equals A sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. And then my geometric is A sub 1 or A sub n equals A sub 1 times r raised to my n minus 1. Just a couple reminders of what these terms are, since a lot of them share the same thing. My A sub 1, who remembers what that stands for? Not the nth term, it's my A sub 1, so it's my 1 term, it's my first term. My A sub n is the nth term. And that n can be 520, 970, it doesn't matter, it's my nth term. N is the number of the term we want. And then the D and the R mean the same thing. It's like, what do we do to get from the first number to the second number? But D stands for difference, and then R stands for ratio. And essentially, it's what are you adding or subtracting to get to the next term? What are you multiplying or dividing to get to the next term? So again, you had these earlier in your notes, so you don't necessarily have to write this part down, but I want you to remember, and we are going to use it, so I want it kind of closer to me so I can have access to it. Okay. So let's look at the first example. Let's figure out, is it arithmetic or geometric? What do I do to go from 3 to -1? Not plus 4, minus 4. And then Ava, that makes it what?
It's arithmetic.
Arithmetic, good. Arithmetic sequence. And what is that -4? What variable does that go for when in our equation? What does it represent in this equation? D, very good. D is -4. All right. Now I'm going to use my general formula. I'm going to use my A sub n equals A sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. You don't have to rewrite it since you already have it above, but I like mine on the board at all times. We're going to write this explicit function, simplify it all the way down. Then we're going to use it to find what my 8th term is. When it's explicit like this, that means we don't know what our n is. So A sub n stays the same and n is going to stay the same. What's my A sub 1? 3. What's my d? -4. Cool. We want to try and simplify this as much as possible. So we're going to distribute that -4 into everything. A sub n equals 3. Oh, minus 4n plus 4. And then I can do 3 plus 4 and get 7. So A sub n equals -4n plus 7. Now we need to find the eighth term. I could ask you to find any term, but we're gonna do eighth for right now. That means I'm either gonna take this equation right here or this one and plug 8 in for my n. I like to use the first one because that helps me remember where everything is, but you also could use this bottom one and you could get the same answer as me. This time, instead of a sub n, I'm gonna say a sub 8. I know that 3 is still my first term, I know 8 is my n, and I know my d is still -4. So a sub 8 equals 3 plus 7 times -4. Which is -28, and 3 plus -28 is going to be -25. If you were to have plugged it in down here, plugged in 8 for my n, you would also get -25. It works both ways. Let's see if we can do this next one real quick before we go to lunch. What do I do to go from 3 to 6?
Multiply by 2, so it's a geometric sequence.
Multiply by 2, multiply by 2, multiply by 2. Earlier this morning, we thought, oh, well, we could add 3 to 6 or 3 to 3 to get 6, but then it didn't work for the other one. So just make sure it works for both of them. So my r is 2. I've got to use my general formula, a sub n equals a sub 1 times r raised to the n minus 1. We do not know a sub n, but we do know a sub 1. What's that? 3. We do know r. What's that?
2.
We don't know n or -1. You might remember me saying yesterday, I actually like doing it this way better because we don't have to simplify anything. So this is as good as it gets. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to find the 8th term. So I'm just going to plug in 8 for my n. 8, 3 times 2 raised to the 8 minus 1. So that's going to be 2 to the 7th. I don't know if I can do power in this one. Is 2 to the 7th 64? You want to do it for me, 2 to the 7th? Yeah. Oh, 128. Okay, thank you. And then 3 times 128 is 384. We might have done that wrong this month. That number doesn't sound familiar in my brain. Sorry, Alpha, if we did it wrong. My bad. Anyway, you just kind of plug and chug, and then this would say that my 8th number is 384. See how much bigger it gets from when you're doing a geometric sequence versus an arithmetic. Okay. This is a nice stopping point. You guys are going to go to lunch, come back at 12:45. We'll keep going with these notes.